Holy smokes, he's coming. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Next Level YouTube channel. Woo! Today, guys, we're talking with Andy Thomas, Rimshaw Hill Climber. We are going over one of the most badass mod sleds. Let's check it out. All right, everybody, welcome back. So it's Sunday. It's typically the finals of the World Championship Jackson Hole Hill Climb, and it's canceled, which is such a huge bummer. It's a bummer to me. I've been there nearly every single year. The smell of 114 octane just flooding the air. It's definitely a crazy time. Certainly crazy for Rimshaw racers that are out there that are so excited about the championships. The fact that it's not happening, we decided that we'd come out here and we would still get a chance, I hope I get a chance, to ride one of the most badass hill climb sleds that I think that are out there. And I've got a good friend of mine, Polaris Climb, ArcticFX athlete, Andy Thomas with us. Andy, what's up? We're gonna elbow, keep that social distancing. So let's talk about the sled. Tell everybody, I'm super excited to have you on the channel. So tell everybody who you are, where you're from, and then some hill climb, some career highlights.
Yeah, I'm super pumped to be here. So I grew up in Afton, Wyoming. I've been hill climbing for, I think this is my 6th year as a pro hill climbing. I've done fairly well at it. When I was semi-pro, I won all my classes at Jackson, semi-pro king. And then coming into my pro year, every year I've raced Jackson, I've won a world championship. I was racer of the year in 2017, and I've slowly been kind of making my way through the backcountry world. So yeah, I'm just obsessed with snowmobiles, and I really like to push the limits on them and see what I can do, and it's worked out for me. So
it's awesome, man. Well, it's been fun watching your career, literally just watching you grow up. I've been friends with you guys for so long, and it's just really cool to see each and every year how you guys are progressing in the sport and really making a name for yourself. And how is, in terms of Jackson being canceled, like what does that do to you in terms of your season, and how does that make you feel?
Yeah, Jackson being canceled is super bummer for us, you know. I mean, there's way bigger problems in the world, and just on our little side of it and in our own little world, we spent hours and hours and hours training, you know, like our bodies, and then just hours in the shop and working, and a lot of money spent, a lot of sponsor support. You know, it's not just my sweat in the gym and my just pounding out a racetrack for hours and hours. It's so many people like Polaris and ArcticFX and Fox and all these people that have put so much time into me, and I can't go show people like our progress. And so that, I think that's the biggest bummer of it. Yeah, is just not being able to go show what we've been working for so hard, because I mean, we do work really hard day in, day out, and with the competition how it is, there's no off season. You know, we're training in the summer too, and so we're super bummed, but out here making the best of it. Yeah, it's been really interesting just chatting with you prior to us doing this about just the work ethic that it takes both on the snow. Obviously, you got to be dialed. Unlike any type of racing where there's multiple laps. Unlike these situations where you could have a bad start and all of a sudden come out of the gate and you're kind of goofed up, so you're sitting in the back of the pack. Well, you've got 10, 20, laps to try to make up some time. You guys get a minute, sometimes even less than a minute, to make it shine, where you're sitting in your trailers, you're using the binoculars, you're looking up the slopes, and you've got one opportunity to shine. And how consistent you guys have to be. I mean, obviously that's an effect of the training, the snowmobiles, the mindset, all of those different things all coming into play in just that limited amount of time. Yeah, and that is the cool thing about hill climbing in our sport, is you don't have another lap to make up for your mistake. You have to be perfect right now on this run, and if you aren't, then somebody else will be. And that's what kind of is so much fun about the training part of it, to just really try to always be perfect with everything, to just always have that mentality to execute perfectly with everything you do, and that mindset of going as fast as you can every second possible. No kidding. So if the standings keep doing what they're doing and we get rid of this coronavirus, I got all the faith in the world in you. So do we need to cut, Clark? It's kind of dumping. So let's keep this rolling. Let's keep this rolling. It's just been awesome. We're going to all be fiddling. So in terms of the Rimshaw, the Rocky Mountain Hill Climb Circuit, right? Or the, what is it, Snowmobile Association, right?
Yeah.
So in terms of hill climbing, what is it? And how many stops typically throughout a season? What does it look like for you guys?
So as far as hill climbing, we usually have 7 events a year. You know, 5 to 8 events. It's typically, this year we had 7, I think. And basically what hill climbing is you're racing the clock.
Yeah.
And there's classes that you can race. So there's like each division for CC of snowmobile or stock or mod. And you enter the class that you bring a snowmobile to race, and you're timed. It's a timed event against everybody else that's riding essentially the exact same caliber of snowmobile.
Got it.
Which is kind of cool. So, and it's timed. So you go through timing lights in the beginning, and there's a bunch of gates that you have to zigzag through, and you have to go in between the gates, and then at the top of the hill you break the lights and the time stops.
Yep.
And it's down to the thousandths. It's really, really precise.
The sled that you brought with me today, let's talk about what class would you race this sled?
So this is my full mod. This is my 900 mod sled, and I'd race it in 900 mod and open mod.
Nice. All right. So big power.
Big power, yep.
Lots of changes to the sled.
Yeah, quite a few changes. It's built to go fast for sure.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's perfect. No better guy to go fast on it. I can't help but notice, you know, I've got a stock sled with us, guys. We've got a 2021 Chaos that we brought out here. Thing's got 4 miles on it. But brought that out as comparison. But what's kind of crazy, right, is they sit side by side, and even riding them, there's still a lot of stock characteristics to what you would consider an open mod snowmobile. Let's talk about the changes over the years, because I can remember 5-6 years ago when an open mod sled, man, you knew it was an open mod. It didn't look like a stock snowmobile. So let's talk about your sled, but then also, you know, let's talk about what changes you guys have made in your years of racing that kind of have gotten to you to this point right here.
Yeah, right. So when I first started, our mods always had really wide front ends.
Right.
You know, and we would drive the snowmobiles more, and the wide front ends would help us get up the course faster without wrecking or tipping over or whatever. So nowadays, like, this is stock width. This snowmobile is essentially stock when you look at it. There's no geometry changes. Which is really cool, and it makes it a lot easier to go back and forth from your stock race sled to your full mod. You know, you want that feeling of this really consistent.
Yeah.
And you know it has more power, so you ride it more cautiously or with more like a better plan.
Yeah.
But it still feels the same.
I got you. And then how different is this setup even from like your backcountry snowmobile? Is it very similar? Or?
So it is very similar to my backcountry setup.
Yep.
The shocks on my race sleds are a little bit stiffer. We take the like really icy, sharp holes, and so my shocks are a little bit stiffer. And I run a few things that are different, like the Mohawk skis. They're very aggressive, and I want that when I'm on the race course.
And
so
something you don't
turn.
see that you need when you're riding in the deep snow in your backcountry setup, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then so suspension, man. Let's dive into this, because I think a lot of people would be interested in, you know, open mod sled and how that differs from what your backcountry sled and what that suspension setup would look like. What have you done, and what changes have you done? And I've noticed, obviously, you've gone to Fox suspension. Mm-hmm. What about this suspension makes it a setup for you to go fast?
So this suspension, I really like how the Fox feels with this QS3 setup. When I'm up on like really steep hills, I can change it. I can make it softer, or if it's in the bottom really hard, icy, I can make it stiffer.
Okay.
So that's one thing I really like about this setup, and why I run the Fox shock is I can adjust it for each race, which is really important.
Okay.
So.
And then the front end, I can tell you've got a stock spindle, but we've got some aftermarket suspension up front, or aftermarket upper and lowers.
Yeah.
ZRP. So tell us why ZRP? Why do you go with those guys? And obviously there's some trust there. Mm-hmm. You're building a snowmobile to go fast. You're building it to win, but you want that durability.
Yeah.
Is this something you use not only in the race course? Is this something you use on your backcountry sleds as well?
Yeah. So the ZRP front end is something I use on my backcountry snowmobile as well. It's stronger. I trust it. They're really hard to bend one of these A-arms. So that's the main reason why I run the ZRP Billet front end. They're really strong, and
Well, I've certainly seen some of these hill climbs where it's like an uphill snow cross, a lot of jumping, a lot of bumps, a lot of ramming into corners, a lot of those things. So strength and durability's got to be a major focus.
It is, and especially when building a really fast snowmobile, you hit those holes really fast, and it eventually it'll start bending things and make things weak. So
is there a point to this where you're still trying to build a lightweight snowmobile? We just talked about our lightweight sleds, you guys, from a previous video, and I'm so focused on trying to pull weight out of a snowmobile. Where is that fine line when you're racing a snowmobile where, you know, lightweight versus durability? Like where do you guys draw lines there? Like what do you, I mean, I've seen a lot of hill climb sleds that have rail braces and things like that, where you're obviously adding some weight to the snowmobile. Is there a big focus there in terms of pulling weight out, or is it way more about I need this thing to finish with me and be durable? Like,
yeah, so that's a fine line that we play. A lot of times we'll do smaller fuel tanks. I like the feel of the stock fuel tank in between my knees and being able to ride it and push on it. As far as losing weight, we'll do obvious things like take the headlights out, and we'll run the minimal amount of fuel as possible. You know, our oil tanks are almost empty. But as far as that goes, we will not make something lightweight if we feel like it might break, because you can't win if you don't finish.
That's right.
And so we like things to be durable.
Yeah.
And so a lot of reinforcement.
Nice. Well, moving back on the sled, Andy, and I'm a big one of this too, like talking about the handlebar setups and how that relates to what you're riding consistently. So do you keep the low bars on your race sleds as well as your backcountry sleds, and how does this setup differ from maybe what stock looks like? And do you change anything up here?
Yeah, so as far as my handlebar setup goes, this is completely stock. I like my handlebars to be in line with my steering post. I will move my brake lever in and down a little bit. That's about it. Up here is basically the same as what you'd get from factory. I do have a billet throttle block.
Okay.
A lot of times we'll hit a jump that we're not expecting, or hit a hole that we didn't mean to hit, and we'll push so hard on the throttle it'll actually break it. So this is a ZRP aluminum throttle block, and I haven't broke one. So
nice.
And then as far as up here goes, also I changed my brake fluid from, I think it's a .4 or a .3 that's in it. I put .6 in.
Okay.
And because we're on the brakes a lot, and when it's icy and you're full throttle, full brake, it gets really warm, and so that's about it.
Perfect. And in terms of the braking, ZRP, once again, you go with a slotted rotor. Like a lot of people, I would put that on there because of lightweight. You put it on there with probably that in mind, but also the advantages there of having that slotted, right? I would imagine you guys get these things pretty damn hot in terms of being on the brake.
Yeah, so with the slotted, like cut out ZRP brake rotor, it allows way more cooling. Yeah. And so that's way easier on our belts. We actually get the brake disc so hot that it'll melt our belts.
Wow.
We don't break our belts, we melt them. And so having that ZRP lightweight rotor has helped a ton. It might be one of my favorite things that I've done.
Nice.
And so, yeah, braking is really important. You need brakes.
Okay, okay. Well, the rest of the sled's looking relatively stock. Obviously, you've got your snow flap. Is that a requirement to Rimshaw?
Yeah, safety for public and hill help.
Okay.
Throwing rocks and things like that.
And then you've got this, I mean, which is obviously adding a bunch of horsepower and some really cool aesthetics to the snowmobile. Can't beat that. But what is the advantage behind a low seat, both backcountry and on the race course?
Yeah, so I run this seat, this exact same setup right here is what I run in the backcountry. And the biggest advantage is being able to get over the seat without having anything hitting your knees or feet.
Yeah.
Because we're moving around a lot on the race course and in the backcountry. So a low profile seat, but you still want it to be comfortable for when you're in and out on the trail, or when you're sitting racing.
Yep.
You know, you want it to have a little bit of comfort, and so that's why I run this seat.
Cool. So any advantage you can, especially as a short guy, probably helps out a lot.
Yep, it's really comfortable, and I never have to worry about hitting my knee on it going from side to side. I like how low it is.
Nice. And that's one of those direct advantages, whether you're backcountry or on the race course.
Right.
Perfect. Well, the other part of this, and then we'll dive inside to the motor. Let's talk about the rear suspension and how that directly helps you, because this I'm assuming is race course specific. This isn't something that you run in your backcountry sled.
No, I run the Easy Ride, and it is race course specific.
Yeah.
It just works really well in the holes. It keeps your front end down. It has really, really good traction.
Yeah.
And wheeling over holes. If you've seen videos of racing Jackson, wheeling over those big moguls, the
Yeah.
easy ride. It's really hard to beat that setup for racing.
Yeah.
I don't run this in my backcountry sled. I run the stock skid in my backcountry sled with Fox shocks, and I like that a lot more for tree riding
Yeah.
and things like that.
Well, a big point that I tried to make in previous videos too is that, you know, we all get so focused on adding a bunch of horsepower to a snowmobile. Well, if you want to and you add a bunch of power, but you don't follow that up by having some suspension that's dialed in for that, you can totally see that in a race course, I mean, put all the power you want to the engine, and you're trying to transfer that obviously at the most efficient way down to the track and through this. But if you don't have a rear suspension that's set up for it, you've kind of got an out of control snowmobile, which is obviously not going to be fast when you're trying to go some specifics as you're going up the course.
Right. Suspension and handling and control is very important, because it gets kind of scary.
Perfect. And then we talked about the skid, and now we've got these bad boys. So talk to me about the screws and what a difference that makes to you while you're climbing.
Yeah, so this is actually just a stock 2.4 powder track that comes on, I think, the 600s, and it's an older track, but we cut it down to 2 inches, and then we put screws in, and these are cold cutter screws. I've messed around with a few different kinds. I've messed Woodies and Stud Boy, and I've been liking the cold cutter screws.
Man, what a lot of work too.
Yeah, and it is a lot of work.
And can you run screws in the stock class on a stock snowmobile?
Yes, you can.
So that's part of that. Part of the rules, obviously. With open mod, I mean, just has to have a track and 2 skis, or what are the rules?
So basically, snow flap, and you have to have all your plastics on, and there's
kind of the rules are there are no rules.
Yeah, exactly. If you modify your clutch, you have to have some reinforcement on your plastics in case it blows up. They don't want it hurting you or the hill help. But
makes sense.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. All right, Andy, let's dig into this thing, man. Let's pull a panel and let's show everybody what an open mod 900 beast looks like. Holy smokes.
Yeah.
All right, so obvious Boondocker turbo, stock pipe. You said that this was a 900, so let's talk about what this thing is. So.
Yeah, so the stock pipe Boondocker turbo, as far as the motor goes, this is a Carl cycle, ported and polished. It's an 850 that's just cleaned up and really, really clean, I guess. It's really fast. It's consistent. The porting and everything that Carl cycle does is really impressive, and it's really reliable. So it's cool that we can push this much boost. You know, I'm running 9-10 pounds of boost, full race gas through a ported motor. I mean, we never used to be able to do that, and so it's cool. Really, really clean setup. And then Boondocker turbo. I've ran Boondocker turbos for ever since I started racing pro. I've never even, I don't even know if I've rode a different turbo. I love the Boondocker setup. It's really quick throttle response. It's clean. This is the tunnel dump, which I thought was a great idea. It's always worked good. So.
And is it based on like what we would call like the Sidekick platform, or what is this turbo different from? What is this different from like what a consumer would buy, or how different is it?
So this is exactly what a consumer could buy. It's just a high boost intercooled turbo kit. The only difference between this and a normal setup is we have changed our routing on our intercooler so that we can actually hook a battery up and run the water through here and through our intercooler on the bottom and pack that bottom intercooler with snow to cool our air temps before we race.
Nice.
And
so that's what this whole thing is here.
Right.
Nice.
It's the only difference is it's not connected to your normal cooler of your snowmobile.
Got it.
And that's just so that we can cool a smaller amount of water faster and have really cool air temps before we leave the starting line.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Nice. How many pounds of boost are you running?
So that is a very interesting question, you know. Back in the day, I feel like we ran a lot of boost, and that goes back to wide front ends. We ran a lot of boost, really wide front ends. It was hard to tip them over, and now it's like all of us are liking the stock feel. We like the narrower front ends with how they sell it, and then the same geometry. There's no difference in this front end and a stock front end, and it makes it so you can actually go faster with a lower amount of boost.
Nice.
I remember a couple years ago I was running 14, 15 pounds of boost, And now I'm
That's a
telling
lot.
them I want 8 or 9 pounds of boost.
Yeah.
And I want to be able to control it, because these snowmobiles work. They work really, really well. And it's fun to look back and see the differences. So
Certainly.
yeah,
See
so-
those changes.
And
Yep.
I don't run a lot of boost. I run 8 or 9, and some guys run a lot more, and some guys probably run less.
Yeah.
And so
And is the idea there in terms of just drivability of the sled, or is it confidence level, or you just don't need any more? Like you've got to be able to utilize the horsepower, right?
right, yeah, I think that it is, for me, it's being able to utilize it and not honestly scare me a little bit, so that I always can trust it and not have too much.
Yeah.
I
makes
think
sense.
there is a fine line of having too much.
Yeah.
And I believe that if you go and make a perfect run on a stock snowmobile,
Yeah.
and then you go make a perfect run on a mod snowmobile, there won't be a very big gap there. And
In terms of your time.
in terms of your time
Yeah,
finish.
yeah.
So
That's cool.
yeah.
Well, it's interesting to see how those things change, because you can remember back in the day when you ran a stock sled up the hill, and then when it came to open mod, I mean, these guys were pulling these, complete tube chassis, completely different engine, super wide front end, all those different things. And it must have been really tough on them as riders to go from a stock snowmobile to that, and
Yeah.
you guys are closing that gap,
Right.
which is really, really cool. So testament to the stock sled that you guys are able to take basically a stock platform. You're not making a ton of changes here, and this is what you'd consider your open mod build.
Right, and
So-
and a lot of that, it's cool how the Boondocker Turbo, how they've been able to integrate that into the Polaris platform. It is very, very clean and smooth the way it comes on with power.
Yeah.
And it's very fast. So if you do have any sort of tiny mistake, it's there to help you gain that back up.
Nice.
And a lot of courses, the turbos are a lot faster, but yeah, it all works together so well, and it's cool. It's fun to build a mod snowmobile.
Well, it's certainly fun to talk about it. You guys from our previous video, we had a comment saying with all of my mod sleds, why don't we just put them all together? We're dang close. If we'd have had twin pipes under this, which who knows if there's even enough room in there, but you guys wanted a 900 with the turbo, well, this is it, right? And it's probably, well, you're having to run. I couldn't help but notice the smell of the fuel as we pulled it out of the trailer this morning. So what fuel are you running to keep this whole thing together?
It is, the fuel I run is VP 114. Yeah.
That makes an expensive day of riding.
it does.
I suppose if you're only riding it and then in terms of practice miles, and then miles up the race course, like at the end of the season, like what does a sled have in terms of hours or miles on one of these sleds?
So these sleds, they're pretty low. Our race sleds, we try to keep them very perfect. I guess
Just
you could
using
say.
them for race day.
Yeah, so we will put quite a few hours on them, tuning them in, suspension work, making sure they're perfect. Maybe when I say quite a few, I mean 10, 15.
Yeah.
So not a lot.
Yeah.
And then our backcountry sleds.
Yeah.
That's why they're all so similar.
Yeah.
You're
getting a lot of
because-
that practicing done with your backcountry sled.
Right,
Makes
so I
tons of
can
sense.
get on my backcountry turbo and go on to this, and they're really, really similar. So those sleds get a lot more time on them. Yeah, our race sleds, they don't get a lot of time. They're pretty perfect all
They're
the time.
just set up and they're just ready to go win races.
Yep, they're just fast.
Well, speaking of racing, I'm kind of jumping around like a little kid here, so let's put this thing back together and let's go burn some fuel.
Okay.
Come right up this and hit this wall and just be standing up right here.
Yeah.
So you don't have to move too far. Because it's probably going to make me pee a little or poop or something.
I think he probably likes it.
Oh man, this thing is unreal. Thank you.
Yeah.
So Annie, immediately, I mean, I didn't get a chance to ride it, but just a couple of minutes, but we were talking about the skis. We were talking about that responsiveness, how that thing really does bite versus the backcountry setup. It's just set up, it pushes into the corners. You can tell how much it grabs. The suspension changes, but to be honest with you, how fun is that you can get on this thing and it's kind of set up like the backcountry builds. That's pretty damn cool.
Really cool. Not a lot of differences, but the little things.
Yeah, the screws in the tracks. That's not a little thing. That
Yeah.
You can tell. I'm sitting there like I might have peed just a little bit. So anyway, I can tell that the difference is there, guys. That is just so unbelievable, man. That's going to take some getting used to.
Yeah.
No wonder you got the freaking guns. That's for sure. But you guys remember, leave those questions and comments below. We're winding down the season here at Next Level. I hope you guys appreciated all that we did. Remember that we're going to keep cranking on. Leave those questions and comments. Remember to hit that subscribe button. We love you guys. We'll see you next year.